welcome to Lidra's very first podcast episode. Joining us today is Head of the English Department, Professor Madhya, Dr. Mary Susan Dillon. Dr. Susan, it is nice to finally be speaking to you on this podcast. Thank you for making time for us.
Thank you for having me, and I'm very happy to hear that you guys have a podcast going.
We are so excited about this, and that you're actually on board with the idea. So firstly, I'll introduce myself. My name is Diandra, and for today's episode, we will ask you a couple of questions about the history of the Literary and Dramatic Association, University Malaya. And for our pilot episode, we thought it would be a good idea to introduce the club's background to our listeners. Shall we begin? Okay. First question, Doctor. When was Lidra first established and whose idea was it?
Okay. Unfortunately, there has been very bad record keeping. So I don't actually have any artifacts from when Lidra was first founded. Mm-hmm. But I know it was in the 60s.
It was in the 60s?
Yes.
That was a long time ago.
The last century. Yes, it was a long time ago.
It's longer than any of us have been alive, apparently.
Almost longer than I've been alive. Almost, but not quite. Okay. It would have been the students coming together to... They would have needed a venue where they could mainly present plays. That was what Lidra did a lot in the 60s and the 70s. If you go online, there's a site called My Art Memory. And if you go and look for their archival materials, you will find a lot of pictures of programs, theatre programs. And you'll find a lot of what Lidra used to do. Right? So that's actually a useful archive. So classic plays like Waiting for Godot, they did that.
Yeah, we did.
Yes.
Semester 1? Are you doing it right now?
Yeah, well, they staged that all those years ago. You know, it shows you how current the play still is. Yeah.
Yeah. But this is new information to us, I think for our listeners as well. This is really interesting. So it's called My Art
Memory.
My Art Memory.
Yeah.
We'll keep that in mind. That is so interesting. And why do you think Lidra has lasted this long? And what is something that draws people to Lidra?
Okay. Well, when you say Lidra has lasted this long,
since the 1960s, right?
It goes into periods of dormancy.
Okay.
Right? And then it suddenly gets revived, and I'm very glad to see that, you know, these few batches, you have the energy to keep it going, because it does take a lot of energy.
It does.
All right. There's no point to a literary and dramatic association unless you do literary and dramatic stuff.
I agree.
Yeah.
What is the point of it? The heart of it, isn't
yes.
it? Yeah.
And especially if you do theatre, drama, it is a very draining, very time-consuming, energy-consuming.
Yes.
It's difficult to commit to that kind of thing, which I think is one of the reasons why it's gone dormant in the past. And also, for a long time, the English department had very small intakes.
I see.
But now with the very large, much larger intakes that we're seeing, there's so many people who can get involved, so many people who seem to be interested, which is great. And I think, you know, it's not limited to English department students, obviously. Anyone can join. And what people will get out of it is having an artistic outlet. Even if it's not a drama production, you have your open mic nights.
Yes.
You have your Instagram poetry page. Right? So it's, I think, a non-judgmental, non-graded
kind of club,
kind of space
yes.
where people can express themselves. And I think it's important because from what I can see, you guys, undergrads, are under more and more pressure to do your courses, get your grades. So you need that safe space, I guess, that open space
kind
to
of
just
express ourselves.
Yes.
I agree. And it is really a nice outlet to kind of nurture that talent we have in us. And Doctor, this is a question that a lot of students or aspiring club members seem to have. What are the qualities one should possess to contribute as a member of Lidra, and is it important to have a background in English literature if someone is interested in joining the club?
It is not important at all to have a background in literature. This is where it's based because of the literary and dramatic thing. But what I find is that more and more people your age are actually writing poetry. That's certainly not something that's limited to literature students. Dramatic talent is not limited to literature students. I remember in the past when I taught my theatre course, when people could take it as an elective, I've had students from law, from the Institute of Biological Science, from engineering. And when I asked, why are you here? Some had an interest in theatre, some were just like, it's different from all the, engineering, science, maths, all that. It's a place where you can just express yourself. Yes, it's very much an escape. So it is open to anyone who has the slightest interest in poetry or drama or novels or short stories or anything. Whether you have the talent to act or write or whatever, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. If you have the interest, you can take part in some way. And you're bound to find some talent of some kind.
Yes.
Definitely. We have the theater going on right now.
We have theater going on right now, and that is so comforting to hear, especially for our listeners. So if you find yourself wanting to write poetry, to act even, Lidra welcomes you with open arms. So moving on from that, why is it important for students to appreciate literature and drama, especially in modern times? With the rise of artificial intelligence and science-based subjects being on the forefront of career choices, why drama?
Why drama? Why literature? There's a reason why those subjects, literature generally, falls under the heading of humanities, because that's what it teaches. It teaches humanity. Right? And I think you'll find when you graduate, whatever job you go to, you are unlikely to use your deep knowledge of Shakespeare or poetry or short stories, unless you stay in teaching or academia. Not likely. But because we ask you to read these novels and stories and so on very closely, and to analyze how these characters are behaving, why are they behaving this way, why do they feel this way, the main thing it should bring out in all of you is empathy and understanding of other people. You do not get this just studying science and maths and engineering.
That's true.
Right? So I feel that we should, it would be great if we could have a system where everybody from every faculty in this university has to do 1 or 2 literature courses, just to give them that little injection of humanity and empathy. But worldwide, there's so much emphasis on the STEM subjects that, humanity gets lost, and it's all about how far can we go, what can we do.
How fast can I generate money?
Yes, that too, yes.
Without, empathy, and right on the dot actually, because personally, in my personal experience, learning literature for how many years now, since I was 16, it's cultivated this sense of humanity in me, where I would always try to understand people and their reason for what their motives are behind their,
There's like a psychology aspect.
Yeah,
right?
psychological aspect and why they behave a certain way. And it's, I think a lot of our listeners who are currently studying literature or used to can relate to what Dr. Susan just mentioned. It's like studying characters and plots in the novel. It's quite similar to reading people as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
It trains you, I think, to realize that there's always something behind what people say, what people do.
Yes. And it's so important to be a listener. And this is a quality that I've learned after studying literature, while studying literature, is to kind of listen more to people as they speak. Because
That's
people
good to hear, Deandra.
I know.
That's why we have this podcast.
Exactly. I feel like, people tell on themselves oftentimes as they speak, and you listen.
Yes.
There are so many talkers, but not many listeners. Anyway, Doctor, what's your favorite memory of any past Lidra events or experiences?
It was my first Lidra event. I think I mentioned this to Tessa. When I and my course mates, we included Mr. Louis.
Oh.
We were, we came in together. We were a very brash and probably annoyingly self-confident gang. I don't know why. We just were. And we heard about Lidra and we thought we want to do something. So we did what we called an arts night. And it's not something that took a lot of organization. It was just, hey, can you do something, sing, dance, act, whatever. Just come and do it.
Be silly.
Right? Whatever. And the best thing about it was the way in which our lecturers joined in. I think they were quite happy to see that we were energetic and all that, so they wanted to help out. So, within the Shakespeare play Midsummer Night's Dream, there is a small play within the play. These sort of comedy characters, they put up a play called Pyramus and Thisbe. It's supposed to be a sort of tragic love story, but the way they do it, of course, it's ridiculous, it's comedic.
Yeah.
So our lecturers did that. They had the costumes, they ran off and hid in corners and rehearsed so that we couldn't see. So on the night when they started, it was a complete surprise to us. And it was just so fantastic to see them really let their hair down and really join into the spirit of what we wanted to do. So that's one of my favorite memories from being an undergrad here.
That's so nice to hear.
Yeah.
And would you be willing to do that for us now?
Right now?
Yeah.
I have nothing prepared.
Well, that's really nice to hear, Doctor, and really inspiring as well. We look forward to more of maybe an arts night from the newly formed committee this term. And if you could describe Lidra as a club in 3 words, what would they be? Just 3 words.
Open, creative, accepting.
Accepting.
That's what I think we should be.
Yes. And I love that. I love that because we are taught to be empathetic, we are supposed to be an open club, and I believe that we are. So we will take those as compliments, Doctor.
Okay.
And now we are running out of time, so we'll leave you with just one more question. What are your hopes for Lidra in the future?
I hope it goes from strength to strength, because after we revived it, or we sort of re-energized it, went for a few years and then it sort of faded away again. So I hope that the energy I have seen over the past few years continues, that you enthuse your juniors every time they come in.
I'm here.
Yes.
So yeah, if you make sure to bring your juniors on board, actively involve them, then I think it will continue, which is what I hope for it.
And I can see that especially with our cohort now. And we hope for our listeners and the committee members, please do take note of this. We will make Lidra stay alive,
yes.
All right? And of course with the help of the new members and also our lecturers as well. And that is actually the end of our very first Lidra's podcast. Thank you, Dr. Susan, for joining the podcast. And also to our listeners, wherever you are, thank you for listening to us. And don't forget to follow our Instagram account at Lidra_UM. Stay tuned and remember, we put the lit in literature. Bye-bye.